I don't want to burst his bubble. I don't want to burst your bubble, but I do have to be honest. Setting unrealistic goals like gaining 15 pounds of muscle, unless you're new to PDs, it's probably not going to happen. Coach Greg, and today I'm responding to God Bod, who made a video, he had a question for me. So I'm going to play the question and I'm going to give you an answer to what he wants to know.
I've been a subscriber for a long time and I really appreciate your videos. They've helped me a lot and I've been following your philosophy on main gaining.
So the question is...
So I would like to cut 10% body fat and put on 15 pounds of muscle over the next year. Now, assuming PEDs come on deck, should I stick with the main gaining philosophy or should I go with the old school bulk and cut?
So how many of you wouldn't want to do the same thing? You have 10 pounds of fat you'd like to lose, and at the same time you'd want to put on about 15 pounds of muscle. Sounds like almost every single person out there. Most people have a little bit of body fat they'd like to lose, and of course they want to add some more size, some more muscle. It's the dream physique. Get leaner and bigger at the same time. So question is, should he bulk and cut or should he main gain? Well, here's the answer. Both methods are extremely unlikely to achieve your goal. So I'm going to break it down why. Okay, first of all, if you're natural, to lose 10 pounds of fat and gain 15 pounds of muscle in 1 year, unless you're genetically blessed and haven't trained before and you have newbie gains to make, probably not going to do it. If you've been training for a while, to gain 15 pounds of muscle in a year, next to impossible. Here's something also that's important to remember. Most people who say they have 10 pounds to lose would actually need to lose about double that in order to achieve their goals. They look at their physiques and self-assess, oftentimes believing that they're a lot leaner than they actually are. When you start a diet, you almost always lose 5 or more pounds within the first few weeks. It's from water and glycogen. So when you say you have 10 pounds of fat to lose, it's probably 20. And once you lose those 10 pounds, you're probably just going to say, oh, I lost a bunch of muscle, but you didn't lose muscle, you lost water and glycogen. So please keep in mind that when you're goal setting, it's important to set appropriate goals. To lose 10 pounds of fat, you're probably going to need to lose about 15 actual pounds of scale weight. 5 of which will be water weight and 10 will be fat. So the thing is, if you want to lose 10 pounds of fat and you lose 10 pounds, you didn't actually lose 10 pounds of fat. It was probably only 5 pounds of fat and 5 pounds of water. So you're going to have to keep losing 5 additional pounds to get those 5 pounds off in order to have a total of 10 pounds of fat loss. And oftentimes, once you lose the 10 pounds of fat, you're going to realize you probably had another 5 or 10 pounds more fat to lose to get as lean as you had in your head. The next thing to realize is 15 pounds of muscle will completely change a physique. You go from looking small to jacked. 15 pounds is tremendous. So if your goal is to gain 15 pounds of muscle in a year natural, you better bet the house that this is not going to happen. Sure, you can gain 15 pounds, but most of it is not going to be muscle. Be water, muscle, and fat. But he says in the video that PDs can be used. Now, PDs are dramatically going to help your ability to put on muscle, but are you going to be able to put on 15 pounds of muscle and lose 10 pounds of fat in a year? The answer is, if you're 100% natural and you have decent genetics, yes, you probably can do this. If you're more of a beginner, you still have newbie gains, you're going to take PDs, you probably can gain 15 pounds in a year. However, if you've used PDs before, like Coach Greg, and you're already at your genetic limit, you're probably not going to add 15 pounds. I weigh 190 pounds and I'm under 9% body fat right now. For me to put on 15 pounds of muscle in a year, that would put me back to my most massive I've ever been at the age of 45. Likely not going to happen, and to do that, I would need to abuse them for the entire year and completely forget about my health. Not advisable. So when you set unrealistic goals, this is not only bad for your mental health, it's also bad for your physical health as well, because when you start training and you don't achieve your goals, chances are you're going to up the dose of the PDs. You might have thought, well, I'll just do a small cycle. Before you know it, you're blasting trend for the entire year trying to achieve the goal that you set for yourself.
My current personal trainer is pushing me to do the bulk and cut method, I really don't like that idea since I don't want to get any heavier than I am right now.
And let's answer this question. Is it smarter for him to bulk and cut? Well, for him, he says he doesn't want to gain any extra fat. He doesn't appear to be shredded. He's not overly lean. He's not small. So bulking and then cutting for him makes no sense because technically he's already bulked. He's already got extra body fat. He doesn't need any more. Adding in extra food, force feeding, it's not going to build a ton more muscle. It's going to build a ton more fat, and his goal is to lose 10 pounds of fat. So if he bulks and gains 15 pounds of extra muscle and 10 pounds of extra fat, at the end of his bulk, he will then have to cut off 20 pounds of body fat. And while cutting, guess what? He's probably going to be off his cycle at that point, and he's going to lose most of the muscle that he put on while in his bulking phase. So does that make sense? Of course not. Why bulk up while on a PD cycle when you're adding both fat and muscle? Because the cycle, it's going to come to an end, and he's going to then have to cut. And while cutting, he's going to be in a calorie deficit, which makes it even harder to retain that muscle. And he's going to do so while off cycle. Imagine, there's zero chance he's going to add 15 pounds of muscle and lose 10 pounds of fat if he ends his cycle and goes natty after doing so. So of course, it makes much more sense for him to slowly, in a small deficit, try to lose the 10 pounds over the course of the entire year. Think of it, 10 pounds of fat in the course of a year would average out to maybe 1 pound a month. That is next to nothing of a calorie deficit. He would likely not even notice he's on a diet, especially if he's eating from the cookbook. He won't have a lack of energy. He'll be able to go to the gym and train harder than last time the entire year and have an optimal opportunity to build muscle because he's going to be eating close to his maintenance. Close! Not above maintenance, but close to it, which will allow him to build muscle and lose fat at the same time. But will that allow him to build 15 pounds of muscle? Probably not. Probably not. So I don't want to burst his bubble. I don't want to burst your bubble, but I do have to be honest. Setting unrealistic goals like gaining 15 pounds of muscle, unless you're new to PDs, it's probably not going to happen. If it was that easy, wouldn't all bodybuilders be putting on 15 pounds of muscle every year? Why wouldn't all professional bodybuilders who know what to do, know what to take, and most have expert coaches helping them, why wouldn't they all be putting on 15 pounds of muscle every year? The answer is because you can't. It's really up to your genetics. How good are you at building muscle with PDs? I abused PDs for years and I never put on 15 pounds year after year. The first year you can probably do it, you're new to the gear, receptors are fresh, and you have all this extra muscle you can put on. You're not way over your genetic limit. But after you've done your first cycle and you've surpassed your genetic limit, it's going to be much more difficult to put on muscle after that. So yeah, I get it. You do your first cycle, it's a small one, and you put on a tremendous amount of muscle and you think, hey, this is easy. I'll just up my dose and I'll put on 15 pounds of muscle again. The problem is it doesn't happen. You can double your dose and only get half the gains, for example. There is going to be a genetic ceiling point where you just can't grow any more muscle. Trust me, I competed at my biggest 195 pounds. My weight limit for 212 was 212. Shocking, right? 212, the limit is 212. I was 195. That means I could have been 17 pounds of muscle bigger and still made my weight class. And guess what? If I could have done that, probably be in the Mr. Olympia. 17 more pounds of muscle on my frame, I would have looked pretty freaking good. I would have been a monster being only a manlet 5'6" tall. But I couldn't do it despite the fact that I was using PDs. And no, it's not because I did it wrong, I trained wrong. Consider I was a bantamweight. Back in the day, that's right, I trained for 10 years. 10 years, started at age 10, 20 years of age, I competed as 142 pounds. And consider that years later, I competed at over 190 pounds. That's over 50 additional pounds of muscle that I added compared to when I was 20, competing as a bantamweight. And when I was 20, that wasn't just starting out. I'd already gotten newbie gains. So to add 50 more pounds, that is a lot. Couldn't gain anymore. Maybe if I abused every single drug to the nth degree, I could have gained a few more pounds, but not 17. Some guys, they have better genetics than me, and they can add more muscle. But for the most part, most people, even if you take PDs, you're not going to gain as much muscle as you think. You see the Mr. Olympia guys, Big Ramy, Ian Valera, all the top competitors. You see just how massive they are, but these guys have the best genetics in the world to build muscle. If you don't have the genetics of these guys, chances are you can't build this much muscle and diet off the body fat at the same time. So what should you do? Step one is to set realistic expectations. What do I always say? Halfway there. I do believe you can lose 5 pounds of fat and gain 7.5 pounds of muscle. That seems like a very realistic goal for you to try to achieve. Try doing that first, and when you get there, then say, is this good enough? Am I happy with this? And if not, set another realistic goal. Oftentimes people hire me and I can't believe the kind of goals that they have. I want to gain 25 pounds of muscle in the next 2 to 4 months. And I'm thinking, there's no way they can do this. And oftentimes they'll say, I want to do it natural. My goal, they'll be 5'6". My goal is to be 200 pounds and 8% body fat. And I'm thinking, they don't even look like they work out, but their goal is to look like me. It's not realistic. Please set realistic goals so that you're not setting yourself up for failure. If your goals are too far-fetched, you are constantly going to be disappointed. What fun is training if all you can think of is, why me? Why can't I be like that? Why can't I have that physique? Compare yourself to yourself, stop trying to be like everybody else, and just go for improvements. If you're making improvements, celebrate those changes and be happy that you're stepping in the right direction. At the end of the day, there's only so much muscle you can build in a year. Whether you bulk and cut or main gain the entire time, the end result is likely going to be the exact same physique in the end. Problem is, if you bulk and cut, it's not as healthy. Yo-yo dieting, not as healthy. You will not be as happy during the process. You'll be happy eating more food, but you won't like the reflection in the mirror quite as much. If you're already feeling a little chubby, why become even more chubby in order to put on more muscle? That extra muscle that you may in fact put on, you're going to lose it while cutting to get to your goal. Now, main gaining, it's not for everyone. If he had just finished doing a competition, if he was shredded, he had a full six-pack, veins running everywhere, and was very, very lean, it wouldn't make sense for him to main gain being as he's underweight or too lean. There's a certain amount of body fat that you need to grow optimally. Somewhere between 10 and 20%, as was discussed with Dr. Mike Israetel. So if you're under 10% and you don't have energy, you don't feel that good, main gaining, it doesn't make sense. I'm not telling people that they should main gain from an unrealistically low body fat percentage. But if you're already at a healthy weight, you already have enough body fat, you're already 15 or maybe even 20%, it makes absolutely no logical sense to eat even more, to force feed, to get fat on purpose in the sense just to build muscle. Because if you do, you might build more muscle, but eventually you're going to look like a bag of milk and you're going to have to do a cut. And guess what? If it's more optimal to build muscle in a surplus, it's going to be less optimal to hold that muscle in a freaking deficit. So just because you're bulking, and even if you gain that 1 or 2 extra pounds of muscle in the bulk, you're going to lose that 1 or 2 pounds of extra muscle that you put on when cutting back to the place you want to be in the first place. So rather than yo-yo dieting every year, which is what bulking and cutting really is, main gain. Hopefully that answers your question, ending it here. And as you see in the background, Harder Than Last Time supplements are available as well. We're looking for ambassadors to help sell and promote these products, and we will pay you. Please visit the link in the description, purchase Harder Than Last Time supplements, protein powders, pre-workouts, and so on. As well, we have a cookbook to make dieting easier than last time. Please check out the cookbook. As well, we have coaching plans developed by me and my team. Please check those out. Subscribe, click the bell button, and until next time, I am out.